Now, here's someone that I have never spoken about on my channel. I may have mentioned it, like, depending on what story I was talking about, but I never probably mentioned him by name. But this is Lee Boy Malvo. If you've been, well, first off, if you are not of a certain age, you would not know who this is. But let me break it down to you. Back in 2002, around the DMV area, there was a string of shootings held that was conducted by a shooter or shooters in this particular case, but we never knew who it was because they were just ducking and dodging and hiding everywhere, and we never knew who the shooter or the shooters were. And that basically erupted into what we now know as the DC sniper situation. And those of us who were around at the time, that was a scary time for us living in this area, because when that happened, I was 13. I was in middle school, and I remember like news reports came on, and I remember in one day they had like sniped like 5 people in like a week in this area. Now they had other locations that they went to. And the reason I say they is because I'm talking about Lee Boy Malvo and John Allen Muhammad, who they ended up executing, I want to say back in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, by lethal injection. Because he was like the mastermind behind it. And I think the only reason they didn't give Lee Boy Malvo this is because they said that John Allen Muhammad brainwashed him, and he was still a minor at the time. Like Lee Boy Malvo at the time was not that much older than me. He wasn't 18. He was still a minor. He was about maybe 15, 16, somewhere around that age range, because me and him are close in age range. Like, we're real close in age. And like I said, it was a very scary time. Like, imagine people were scared to go outside because they didn't know where they were shooting from. I think one of the most devastating ones was when they shot that boy. I think he went to Benjamin Tasker in Bowie. He didn't die. Luckily, he didn't die. I think he was one of the few victims that got shot that did not die, but everyone else for the most part got killed. Like those were life-threatening injuries. But like I said, like even at gas stations, they had to put like I forgot what they call it, some kind of material where people can hide behind so they couldn't get a good look at the people. People, like when they were getting gas, you had people that would put the gas pump into the tank and sit back in their car. Some people even did so much as to duck behind their car while getting gas. I kid you not. Some of y'all probably thinking this being over dramatic, but when all of that was happening, if you were around, you would see that. And I actually saw that in real time, and it was crazy when all of that was happening. But just to give you an overview of that. But the reason why I'm doing a video today on Lee Boy Malvo is because it just came out that the Supreme Court has dismissed his case. I have no clue what this means, but I'm gonna go ahead and read this article from CNN to see what else gets discussed. The Supreme Court dismissed on Wednesday the pending case of Lee Boy Malvo, who was convicted for his role in the serial sniper shooting spree that rocked Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia 17 years ago. Last fall, the court heard arguments in the case after a lower court ordered a new sentence for Malvo, who was 17 when the crimes were committed in 2002 and was originally sentenced to life without parole. In court, lawyers for Malvo said his sentence deserved a fresh look because the Supreme Court had issued a new guidance of juvenile offenders in recent years. At the time, Virginia argued against Malvo. The one sentence order, which was expected, comes 2 days after Virginia governor signed a bill making juvenile offenders who were sentenced to life imprisonment eligible for parole after serving 20 years. So that basically means, since he's already been he didn't go to jail immediately after this happened. So, because this event happened toward the end of 2002, it was right around, I would say, the October range when it happened. And when they finally got him, I don't think he actually finally got sentenced to jail until the following year in 2003. So if it's 20 years, then that means he will be able to get out in 2023. But the thing is this: everybody knows what this guy, what he did, despite the fact that, yes, he was a minor. Yes, we know he was coerced into doing this. But that incident right there will forever hold a stain in this area. Like I said, if you were around during that time and you were of age and you were old enough to remember this, then you know, and it's crazy because that was literally almost a year after 9/11. So it's like you had 9/11 happen in September of 2001, and then a little over a year later you had this happen. So it was like, damn, we was almost scared to see what was going to happen in 2003, if anything happened in 2003. Both sides told the Supreme Court there was no reason to continue the case. I didn't even know they were still working on the case. I thought the case was pretty much done. Malvo, who is now 35 years old, was one of 2 people convicted in the sniper attacks that left 10 people dead. His partner in the shooting, John Allen Muhammad, was executed in November 2009 in Virginia for his part in the spree. The ruling is likely to have a broader impact on other inmates who were convicted as juveniles because Malvo is also serving life sentences for his crimes in other states. In case y'all did not know, while they called this the DC sniper, or they called it the Beltway shootings or something. I think that was the other name, but I don't think it really called on like the DC sniper did. So they didn't really call it that much. In case y'all didn't know, the shootings that that Lee Boy Malvo and John Allen Muhammad were involved in did not originate in this area. It didn't start here. It started, I believe, in Seattle, like all the way in Seattle, Washington. I think that's where it started at. And then they traveled cross country and did little hit pieces here and there. But it was when they got here where they really planted their flag. They had everybody looking for a white box truck. Those of you who are out there listening to the sound of my voice who are from the area know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that white box truck. And when it was all said and done, they got discovered by a white guy who had a rest stop, and they were at a rest stop, and they pulled in a blue Caprice, and he saw them sitting there, and he went right to a payphone and said, are y'all still looking for those 2 guys that they call a DC snipers? And they was like, yeah. They said, well, I think I see them. I see them here at this rest stop, and they're in a blue Caprice. And then that's how they got caught. They got caught by, it was a white guy that caught them at a rest stop. They just happened to be there at the same time, and Lee Boy Malvo and John Allen Muhammad were sleeping because they was resting, because all of that movement, they couldn't really stop for too long. And to be honest, in case y'all didn't know why this whole thing was going on, it's because John Allen Muhammad was trying to get back at his ex-wife because of some custody battle with her and his kids, and she wasn't allowing him to see his kids and everything like that because I believe he was in the military, and I don't think with the effect that it had on him in the military, she didn't and probably the courts didn't feel he was fit to have custody of the kids, and he was trying to get back at her. His mission was to kill her. That was his entire plan. In case y'all didn't know, John Allen Muhammad's entire plan was to kill his wife. The people that they killed along the way, they were just, as you can say, casualties of war. But it was basically a domestic terrorism attack. I don't know if they ever called it that, but that's what it was. But his reasoning for doing this was so he could get back at his wife. And he wanted to kill her. And he never once got the chance to do it, because not one, as far as I'm concerned, not one barrel was shot in her direction. They even went so far as when they did the shootings, and they were very strategic with this, and that's why I say when he was in the military, that's how he got those tactics. I remember a scene in the Blue Caprice movie where they drilled a tiny hole in the back of the Caprice that could fit the scope, well, not the scope, but the barrel, a little bit through the hole, and Lee Boy Malvo was back there in the trunk, and they would just find a random person and shoot them like they were in a parking lot. And the thing is, because you could not see where the shot came from, because he wasn't on the outside, people never knew where the shot came from or who did the shooting. That's why I said they were very strategic, and that's why people never knew who they were. And the reason they got caught is because they just got caught slipping that one night, because they got caught at a rest stop. It was like an abandoned rest stop. It wasn't like one of those ones where people go out there and, it's a whole bunch of people. It just so happened that it was an abandoned one. And that one night when they thought they were alone, they really weren't. So when they woke up, they were surrounded by a bunch of red and blue lights. If y'all don't believe me, go and watch that movie, Blue Caprice. And that movie was pretty much spot on accurate, for that film. As a matter of fact, Isaiah Washington, before he lost his damn mind, he played John Allen Muhammad, and the guy who played Drew in Everybody Hates Chris, who was Chris's older brother, he played Lee Boyd Malvo, and I think that was good casting because they kind of look alike. But I'm getting off of the topic right now. I just want to like break that stuff down because a lot of people didn't know what was going on except outside of what reports were saying, especially if you didn't live in this area. But let me go ahead and get back into this article. Last year, the justices struggled for more than an hour discussing the impact of their prior cases as well as the details concerning Virginia's sentencing scheme. The case came after the retirement of Justice Anthony Kennedy, who wrote a landmark opinion in 2005 barring the death penalty for juvenile offenders. In 2012, the justices held that mandatory life without parole sentences for juvenile offenders violate the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. 4 years later, the court said the decision applied retroactively. At oral arguments, Virginia argued that the sentence of life without parole could stand because Malvo's sentence was discretionary, not mandatory. Justice Elena Kagan had questioned, however, whether Virginia properly considered Malvo's age. She pointed out that the 2012 decision, which she wrote, could be summarized in 2 words: youth matters, and that a sentencer must treat children differently from adult offenders. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, on the other hand, repeatedly questioned a lawyer from Malvo on the meaning of the court's precedents and how they would impact cases where the judge or jury did not just consider a sentence of life without parole. Now, let's take Lee Boyd Malvo and compare him to, let's say, Affluenza boy Ethan Couch. Granted, they were 2 different ages. Now, you had Affluenza boy Ethan Couch, who at the time I believe was 13, took his parents' vehicle without their permission, went into their stash and got drunk or got liquor without their permission, as far as we know, got in their vehicle and drove around joyriding and killed 4 people. He, to this day, never served any time in jail for the crime of what he did, because they said he suffered from affluenza, meaning someone who was so rich that they don't know what they're doing. I still, to this day, that whole thing still just puzzles me and blows my mind. Now, he has gone to jail. Not a long time, but, he's done some time in jail. But not for the crime he committed, but because he violated his probation, in which he got drunk when he wasn't supposed to be drinking, and then on top of that, fled the establishment with his ratchet ass mother. Yes, I called her ratchet, and I will still call her that, and hopped the border. Now, she ended up serving some jail time because of that, because she was basically aiding and abetting what they would consider to be a criminal. And then he came back and he ended up going to jail because he violated his probation. And I think I just recently did a video again of him having to go back to jail for doing something else. But he never served time for his actual crime of killing 4 people while driving under the influence. Now, you have Lee Boyd Malvo, who has been in jail since 2003, and he's been serving out his time. But when they want to question why they're going to dismiss his case, or at least this one in particular, it's so many reasons as to why he's doing it. Now, we know he did kill people. Yes, we know he did, and that was messed up that happened. Also, like I said, he was brainwashed and coerced to do this as well. Because if you look into his background, he came from a very messed up background. Like, he grew up poor. I believe he was from Haiti or something like that. He was from one of those Caribbean islands, and that's how John Allen Muhammad found him. And he just basically took him in because his mother couldn't take care of him. So it was very easy to get into his head. That's why I said, if y'all go watch that movie Blue Caprice, if you haven't watched it already, it actually dives into that aspect as well. It like literally starts at the point where John Allen Muhammad finds Lee Boyd Malvo, and then he, kind of raises him, take him in as his own, and then trains him how to shoot and all types of stuff. It was a really good movie though, if you want to get insight about it. But they are questioning the dismissal of this case. Now, it says he still has other charges from other states, so I don't know how that's going to play out, but we'll see. But like I said, it's amazing they let Affluenza Boy get off the hook, but when it came to Lee Boy Malvo, they got a whole bunch of questions as to why this is. And like I said, he's still in jail as far as we know. It's just that they're dismissing the charges against him. But I will say this. He's not going to be able to, like, say he was able to leave jail today. He would not be able to walk around just as a free man. Because everyone knows what he did. Everybody who were there knows what he did. Now, for those that weren't there, they might see him walking down the street and not know who the hell he is. But see, the thing is, his looks really haven't changed that much from when he was a kid. You can tell he looks a little bit older here. He probably looked like he gained a little bit of weight compared to when he was a kid. When he was a kid, he was a scrawny little thing. But for the most part, that 17 years have passed. You know how many people have been born or are of a certain age now who was born since then? Who might see him and be like, okay, who is this guy? Unless their parents told them about him or a sibling who was around told them about him. But I highly doubt he will be able to just like walk free or anything like that. Like there's probably some underlying things there that they're going to also have to take into consideration when it comes to his particular case. Because it's a very delicate one. It's a very interesting one. It was a very devastating one at that. Because it was scary too. It was a very scary time for us who lived here in this area because we never knew who it was. We never saw them. They were like phantoms. Like a lot of stores started losing businesses for the time that they were doing their little reign of terror because no one wanted to go outside. A lot of parks were empty because parents wouldn't allow their kids to go play outside. It was that real. I am not even over exaggerating this. It was a scary time. Like it got so intense that they kept upping the reward every time, like almost every day when they came to looking for them. So I know when that white guy found him, he got paid big time from whoever was offering the reward, who I'm going to assume was in this area. I never seen a reward that high before at the time. It was high, like very high. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm very curious to see what y'all have to say as it pertains to this story down in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure if you're not doing so already to follow me on Twitter. Have your notifications turned on, and I will talk to you in the next one.